On May 27, 2023, the largest home insurer in California stopped selling new home insurance. There was no fire that week, no hurricane, no disaster on the news. Just an ordinary spring day, and the biggest carrier in the richest insurance market in America quietly closed the door.
I know exactly how that feels. I bought my first house last year, my first, 12 months in, no fire, no claim, and my insurer sends me a letter. We will not be renewing you. I wanted a real answer. So I went looking for the one person who actually reads the fine print.
Well, you found the right desk. I spent 30 years putting a price on catastrophe. And I'll tell you straight, a company does not walk away from millions of customers because it's afraid of the weather. It walks away because of a math problem. This is that math problem. By 2025, 7 of the top 12 home insurers in California had pulled back, pausing new business or dropping tens of thousands of existing customers. State Farm alone chose not to renew around 72,000 policies in a single year.
And it's the wildfires, right? That's all anyone talks about.
That's the easy answer. And it's wrong. The fires didn't start this crisis. They exposed one that was already years in motion. To see why, you have to read a law older than you are, Proposition 103. In 1988, California voters passed Proposition 103. The promise was simple and popular: no insurance company can raise your rates without the state's permission first. It's called prior approval. Almost 40 years later, that one rule sits underneath everything that's breaking today.
Okay, but hold on. People here still need insurance. Companies exist to sell it. Why would anyone just walk away from that much money?
Because they weren't allowed to charge what the risk was worth. Prior approval isn't the villain by itself. The problem is 2 specific rules bolted onto it. 2 rules that quietly made it impossible to put a fair price on a fire. Rule 1. Under Prop 103, insurers had to set wildfire rates using roughly 20 years of historical losses. Backward-looking. Which means a hotter, drier, faster-burning future. The one every one of my old colleagues could see coming was legally invisible in the price.
So you were pricing tomorrow's fire with yesterday's weather.
That's exactly it. Rule 2. When an insurer takes on more risk than it can safely hold, it buys its own insurance, called reinsurance, from global capital markets. After a decade of record disasters worldwide, the price of that reinsurance exploded. Every state lets insurers pass that cost on to customers. Every state except one: California. So picture the box the carriers were in. The true cost of the risk is climbing. From climate, from reinsurance, from building deeper into the hills. But the price they're allowed to charge is anchored to the past and capped by law. And to change it, they file with the state and wait. Often more than a year, while a consumer group can challenge the filing line by line. Here's the underwriter's rule, the one that governed everything I ever did. If you're not allowed to charge for a risk, you stop taking the risk. That's the whole crisis in one sentence. When the price the state allows falls below the risk the company sees, the company stops writing, and a homeowner gets a letter that says, "We will not be renewing your policy."
A letter exactly like mine.
Now, California did plan for people who can't find coverage. It's called the FAIR Plan, the insurer of last resort. Bare bones fire coverage, meant to be a small safety net for a few hard cases. Watch what happens to a small safety net when everyone falls into it at once. The FAIR Plan's total exposure, the dollars it has on the hook, was about $50 billion in 2018. By September 2024, $458 billion. By June 2025, $649 billion across more than 610,000 policies.
$600 billion? For the thing that's supposed to be the backup plan?
That's the point. By design, it became one of the largest concentrations of fire risk in the country. Then, January 2025, the Palisades and Eaton fires, more than 16,000 structures, gone. The costliest wildfire in American history, more than double the 2018 Camp Fire. As of last November, insurers had paid out $22.4 billion across roughly 42,000 claims. And the FAIR Plan, the last resort, now holding all that concentrated risk, didn't have enough to pay. So on February 11, 2025, the Insurance Commissioner signed Order 2025-1. For the first time in over 30 years, the FAIR Plan billed the private insurers still operating in California for up to $1 billion to cover the shortfall. Follow that money, and you see the trap. Insurers exit. The people they drop pile onto the FAIR Plan. The FAIR Plan concentrates the very worst risk into one pool. One bad fire season, and that pool sends a $1 billion bill to the insurers who stayed, handing them one more reason to leave. Economists have a name for this shape: a death spiral. So does anyone try to stop it? At the end of 2024, the state blinked. The Insurance Commissioner's sustainable insurance strategy did the thing Prop 103 had blocked for 36 years. Starting December 2024, insurers can finally use forward-looking catastrophe models and finally pass through reinsurance costs on one condition. They have to write coverage in the high-risk, fire-prone areas they'd been fleeing, at 85% of their statewide market share. It's a real deal. We'll let you price the true risk, if you come back to the people who need it most. But the price of finally letting insurers charge for the risk is that they finally charge for the risk. In May 2025, the state granted State Farm a 17% emergency rate hike and stated on the record that the company was in, quote, extraordinary financial distress.
But that still means my bill goes up. So what do I actually do? Just pay it and hope somebody keeps selling me a policy?
I'm not going to tell you what to do. That was never my job. What I'll tell you is this: the number on your insurance bill was never just a market price. It is the output of a procedure, a law, a filing, a hearing, a formula written in 1988. When that procedure and the real world drift apart, you don't just get a bigger bill. You get no bill at all, because there's nothing left to buy. California is simply the first place the two drifted far enough apart to break. It will not be the last. There's one piece I left out of this story on purpose: reinsurance, the global layer of capital that quietly decides what your local policy costs. That's the next uninsurable. But first, on the meter. Your electric bill is climbing too, and the reason isn't fuel. It's a number a regulator wrote down.
I still don't have coverage, but at least now I understand the machine that made that call.
I'm Marcus Reeve. I spent 30 years reading the fine print. Now I read it out loud.